when you receive, you just start to listen. Oh my gosh, there's a gift in that failure. There's insights. And when you start to receive those things and slow down to listen to those lessons and messages, you start to have manifestations that come from feeling good, pleasurable experiences. And so you become more connected to your relationships, that kind of openness and abundance in general with the people around you, and connectedness to yourself and to others.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 479 with guest Angela Jia Kim. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you have chosen to spend your time with me today. And if you are working out when you listen to this, I hope you have a great workout. And if you're driving, I hope that you get all green lights and have no traffic and don't miss your exit. I know that can happen to me sometimes. And maybe you're out on a walk. I don't know, walking your dog. I hope you're having a great day. And also, there are a couple of more openings for private coaching if you would like to work with me or one of my lead coaches. If you're going to work with me, there's kind of 3 different options. I can take you through the Daring Way curriculum, which is sort of a deep dive, or you can have open sessions where you bring the agenda, you bring your goals and priority of focus, and we get it done. Then the last thing is I do consulting. I've had kind of several people, it's a thing now, who come to me who want to write a nonfiction book, don't know where to start, or they want to write a book proposal, don't know where to start, or they have something in that realm where they're feeling super lost, and I may or may not be a great fit for that. So shoot us an email if you're not sure, or you can fill out an application, andreaowen.com/apply, and we'll see what's good. All right. Today's episode, I have been loving this self-care theme. I'm also really looking forward to the next theme, which is women's health. I've been scouring the internet. And by scouring the internet, I mean looking who I follow on social media. No, I'm only half kidding. But I am excited partly for selfish reasons, because I am going through some stuff over here, like with hormones and all that. I just hired a new doctor here. Do you hire a doctor? I guess that's how it works. I have a new doctor. We start next Monday, and it's all about like hormones. Is it autoimmune? Is it just being 47 and a half? What is happening? So stay tuned on that. But that's what we're going to be talking about in the next theme coming up. Hormone stuff, just general women's health stuff. And I was thinking about it this morning. I think we should have a sex theme. We haven't had that. And it's part of women's health, but I follow a handful of people on social media that are so interesting, specifically about sexual health for women. And it's kind of a big topic. And, I love talking about things that make people uncomfortable. So maybe we'll do that. DM me on Instagram if you feel like, if you're thinking there's a specific topic where you're like, I don't think Andrea's covered that. Shoot me a DM. I'm always open to hear your suggestions on specific topics and or specific experts. All right, everyone. I am really pumped to bring you today's guest. I met her. We were instant friends, and I really think that you're going to love her work and just her. Angela Jia Kim is a former concert pianist and founder of Savor Beauty Spa, a Manhattan-based skincare and spa brand inspired by Korean beauty rituals. She's also the author of Radical Radiance, 12 weeks of self-love rituals to manifest abundance, beauty, and joy. So without further ado, here is Angela. Angela, thank you so much for being here.
Andrea, I'm so excited to have a juicy conversation with you today.
I know, me too. I had to pause there for a second because I had a weird throat burp. I hope nobody heard that. We're the
I would
worst.
have never known.
Okay, good. This microphone picks up everything. I was recording with someone yesterday and my stomach was growling and I kept hitting mute on Zoom. I'm like, oh my God, this never happens. So embarrassing. Anyway,
It's so human.
I know, it's so human. It really is. First of all, your book cover is gorgeous. It's so pretty. When I got it in the mail, I was like, I love a good yellow cover.
Aww.
It's so beautiful. And more importantly, the inside of the book. Well, let me tell everybody what the title is. Radical Radiance, 12 Weeks of Self-Love Rituals to Manifest Abundance, Beauty, and Joy. And okay, I want to cover every single chapter, but we can't. Where I want to start is the one that, just like shot my interest through the roof was, I think it's chapter 5 where they go by week. Week 5, awaken your feminine energy. You and I seem to have some stuff in common where I always thought feminine energy was just kind of like light and airy and like kind of wishy-washy and just like childlike and just passive, period.
Yes.
And I love how you explain it. I love how there's a chart. So can you kind of I'm going to just throw it out there. And can you explain to the listeners maybe what the difference is between masculine and feminine energy and why it's important for us to lean into our feminine energy?
Okay. So before I get into the chart, let me back up and tell you, yes. I agree. I agree with everything you said about feminine energy. I used to think it was, for people who weren't type A, who weren't going to go after their dreams. And as you said, like super passive. Mm-hmm. And so I used to be a concert pianist. And then when I kind of had this career shift into an entrepreneur, I thought I had to compete with male colleagues, male founders, right? So I went into masculine energy overdrive, meaning that I feel like I became kind of hardened. I went from an artist to becoming a boss. I was like, make it happen mode. NBC's Today Show even featured me. They were like, they had this early bird series and they came to my house at 4 a.m. and I would be up and they were like, wife, mother, entrepreneur who runs successful businesses. Her day starts at 4 a.m. And it was just like a crazy schedule where I was doing my daughter's play dates and then I was attending meetings and I was very numbers focused. And, I think you and I talked earlier about how when there's a crisis that often happens before a breakthrough, right? You break down in order to break open. So, and that's what happened. And I was starting to have panic attacks and my body was like giving in, but my mind was like, keep going. And that was such a lie, So I think what ended up happening is I decided that I wanted to explore a more feminine way of doing business. I call it spiritual 7 figures. Because I really believe that you can get to experience success in a completely different way. And it was just really connecting with my feminine energy, which, Andrea, it's actually so much more powerful, you know what I mean? Like, so let me share. Okay. Now that I gave you that backdrop, let me just share with you, like the difference between masculine and feminine energy. Okay. So I'll just go through, there's a big list on page 120 of the book. But so masculine energy is like drive, assertiveness, protection, singular focus. Feminine energy is more about creation, connection, warmth, diffused awareness, right? Like we always say multitasking, but I like to call it diffused awareness, where it's like you can kind of be aware of a lot of things. You can read the room and also lead a meeting, right? Or lead the room and read the room and also take care of your kids, so it's much more about comfort, warmth, empathy, inspiration, flowing, receiving. That's a huge feminine energy piece, and allowing, and then also connecting with the softer side of yourself. I think the masculine side likes to do, and the feminine side likes to be. And once I started to embrace this feminine energy, I noticed that it didn't overwork. I slept better. I felt better. I feel like I was a more empathetic warm mom, boss, partner. So that's what I really, really love about embracing the feminine energy. Did you experience any of that in your own life as well?
Well, I was just about to say, like, I had to experience multiple burnouts before I finally was like, oh, there's another way of doing life. And
Yes.
I do think that it's for some women, it's part of their personality to just be more assertive and driven and just do all the time. I think some of it is like neurodiversity, like having ADHD, like I do. And I think a lot of it too is cultural. You know, it's like we live, you can't escape it living in a capitalistic culture where we are valued more the more that we do. And all that to say, I product of all of that myself, and then experienced massive breakdown and then had to learn a new way, but also it's kind of it's like learning how to do a new dance. And I have found that I have to kind of be intentional about it, if you will, and practice it. And I love in your book how you talk about these different beauty rituals. And I never looked at that type of thing as being in your feminine energy. And even just, if you don't even want to call it feminine energy, just slowing down. That has been the hardest part for me. Just slow down. It's okay.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be an emergency all the time.
Right. You don't have to be in go get it mode at all time. You don't have to be superwoman all the time, super mom. It's
not sustainable for most of us.
No, it's not. I think in your 20s and 30s, maybe, but then at some point you realize that the stress weighs you down, literally, you know, and it weighs you down. It eventually, as you said, you experience a burnout, and some people can't recover from a burnout as quickly as they want. Right. And I think, on a side note, like nourishing your feminine energy, it alleviates your stress lines. And when you're in better balance, you feel better, which is, like, I always say, it's the best youth elixir for tired skin cells, you know?
Yeah. And I had a couple of burnouts over the last decade and a half, just from starting a business and writing some books while also being the primary caregiver and all of those things. And my dad died, and, just life as everyone experiences. But then the pandemic, and I know you had a big sort of turning point during the pandemic. The pandemic for me was sort of my breaking point, where my mental health, the way I describe it to people is like, my mental health took a shit, and they always look at me like, what? You know me, that's how I talk. And then also I was diagnosed with an autoimmune, which the doctors say, like, it's usually like always lurking in the background, and then something happens and it just kind of gets triggered and you start to see symptoms. Plus being perimenopausal, I'm 47 now. So that was, my body was like, we're done.
A new way of living. It's a new lifestyle.
It is a new lifestyle. Right? Yeah. I feel like I've turned a corner. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
So tell us about, because you experienced, big life change by getting divorced. And so in the book, you talk about how that experience deepened your self-love and helped you develop a healthy mindset, even towards dating in your 40s. So can you walk us through that time?
Yes. So just backing up a little, the word divorce is like not allowed in my family and in my, my mom, especially my mom's like ethos. Right. So for me to get to the place where I was okay with it and I had come to accept it, and then I was ready to act on it, that was huge. It was so huge because I remember thinking, I told my friend the first time and I was like, my ex-husband and I were going to get separated. And she was like shocked because no one knew, because actually my ex-husband and I are friends, and so, and we don't have one of these disastrous divorces. We came to it very peacefully, and it was just a natural growing of separate ways. He preferred the country, I preferred the city. We realized our life goals were no longer in sync. And so it wasn't like this like drawn out horrible thing. In fact, we got divorced for under $2,000. We didn't hire lawyers. We did all the mediation ourselves.
Oh, wow. It was just
our
easy.
Therapist was it was just very easy divorce. Right. And we're on the same page with co-parenting. And I feel very fortunate about that. But, so no one knew. It was a shock to everyone. And she said, well, how are you going to tell your mom? Because she knows my mom. And I said, I'm not going to tell her. She said, what do you mean? And I said, well, so, she's 75. And I want her to live till she's 100. So I'll just keep the secret for 25 more years. So I wanted to give that backdrop because I just want to share that it was a very hard thing for me to do. But I think it was 2020, the year of the pandemic. So we were mandated to shut down our spas. And then on top of it, there's this divorce. And now I was all alone with my daughter, a single mom in Manhattan. And I was just scared. I was scared out of my mind on so many levels. Like, can I afford to live on my own in Manhattan, keep my daughter here in school, and just like, can I do this? And then it was the question of, well, what now? Am I going to be alone? Like, what do I do? Like, I'm used to having a spouse, and it's 20 years, Andrea.
Wow.
20 years. And then on top of it, it was, oh my gosh, now I have to tell my mom. And then on top of it, I need to what are my friends going to think? Right. So it was just so many self-constructed prison bars that I had, self-imposed on myself. So it was a really rough period. And the only thing that helped me through it was self-love, honestly, acceptance, self-approval. Like, it's okay. I don't care what anybody thinks. It's okay. I'm going to tell my mom, and I'm going to just live with the repercussions of her disappointment in me. It's okay. And the funny thing is, when I told my mom, she didn't flinch, and she said, "Oh, Angela, I knew it."
Really?
Yes. And I was just like, I almost started crying. I was like, oh my God. Like she said,
she know?
I don't know. No one else knew, but she's my mom. So she just knew. Yeah. I'm
My
like
mom's
getting
known things like that, that I thought I was hiding really well.
Yes.
That I was
Moms
successfully
just
hiding from everyone
know.
else. Mm-hmm.
Yes. She's new. So I was like, oh my gosh, that was kind of my first realization that, like, who cares what anybody thinks? Because they're probably not even thinking that much about you. It's your life.
True.
All these self-love rituals that I wrote in the book, because I wrote the book during the pandemic, they were all self-love rituals that I used to heal myself. And my mom, speaking of her, she says something very important, and it's the premise of this book. It's treat your skin like the most expensive silk on earth. And I think that's such a beautiful metaphor for treating ourselves like the most expensive silk on earth. And what does that mean? It's treating ourselves like we deserve the nourishment. And deserve is a big word, because most of us, many women, don't feel like we deserve love. And so we're the last on the list. We deserve to nurture ourselves. And the first ritual in the book is wash your face. I teach you how to double cleanse using a Korean beauty technique. Korean women are very obsessed with their skin. So my mom was as well. And I grew up watching her wash her face, massage her face. She had glistening, almost wet skin, where it was dewy, moisturized, radiant. And she really took beautiful care of her skin. She's now entering into her 80s, and she just has gorgeous skin. People come to I have spas in the city of Manhattan, and our estheticians will work on her face, and they'll say, oh my gosh, her skin is like a 40-year-old woman,
Wow.
She taught me, treat your skin like the most expensive silk on earth. And I think that means take the time to, how we treat our skin is how we treat our souls. So I learned how to treat my soul through how to treat my skin. So even taking 1 minute to wash your face, you will be shocked, Andrea, at how many women have a hard time taking 1 minute to wash your face at night. Yeah. And that washing your face is very symbolic, because what a lot of women don't know is if you go to bed with not washing your face, you're going to bed with sweat, blocking your pores, sebum, toxins from the day, dirt, debris in your pores, which either will help make you break out, or it breaks down the collagen in your skin, which makes you age faster. And so I like to view washing your face as a spiritual ritual where, yes, on your skin, you're taking out all the dirt and debris, and you're softening your skin and you're moisturizing it. But also you can do that for your soul at the same time. I'm going to bed purified, and I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about my to-do list. I'm leaving that outside of my bedroom door, and I'm going to go to bed cleansed, refreshed, rejuvenated, so that I can have a good night's sleep. It's just a small little 1 minute reminder. And when you look at that as a very powerful ritual and symbolic stance on non-negotiable time, I tell women to do this throughout the 12 weeks. It can be life-changing because it's a small transformative change that then you start applying to other aspects of your life. Well, if I can take 1 minute to wash my face, can I take 5 minutes to stretch my body and tell everyone in the house to leave me alone? Can I take an extra 5 minutes to do some planning and meal planning? Can I take another 5 minutes to plan out my day so it does not feel rushed and chaotic? Can I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes even, to meditate? And so it just starts with one small change that can help change your life.
Just grows from there.
Yeah. Do you wash your face at night, Andrea?
So I didn't start washing my face. No. I think probably washing my face and wearing sunscreen was sort of when I finally started that ritual together. I definitely don't remember doing it in my early 30s, or no, my late 20s, but I think in my early 30s, like that's when I had like my life breakdown and everything changed. And I finally started taking care of myself. So I was late to the game. I don't know. That might be for that time, for my age, because my daughter's 12. She's going to be 13 as we're recording this. She's going to be 13 tomorrow. And she's been washing her face for about a year, maybe 2 years now. And I watch her and I'm like, I never would even think of doing this when I was her age.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that these girls are starting that younger. So one time, a quick story. Years ago, someone tagged me in on Instagram stories, and she said, she was like doing her skincare or something. And she goes, and I'm taking a note from Andrea Owen. Don't forget your neck, because if there's one thing I would go back and change, remembering to put sunscreen. When I did start doing sunscreen, it was just on my face, and I forgot my neck and chest. And I'll tell you what, that neck shows your age in the tops of your hands. I now have sunscreen. I carry sunscreen in my purse. And when I'm driving, I put it on the tops of my hands. It's like these little things that many of us don't think about. Things have changed, but that I certainly didn't think of.
Okay. You know what? I will say this. You just taught me something about skincare, because I don't put it on my neck. I don't put sunscreen on my neck and my hands. And that is huge. I'm going to talk to my estheticians about this. I'm going to tell them, Andrea Owen, neck and chest and hands. That's beautiful, because you're right. Well, I'm always saying, don't forget to moisturize your neck, your décolleté, and your hands, because most women, what they'll do is they'll moisturize their face, and to my horror, they'll wipe their hands with a towel. And I'm like, no, take all that cream, amazing cream, and apply it to your neck and décolleté and hands. So I'm really glad you mentioned the SPF. On that note, SPF. So, I always think the skin can teach us soulful lessons, right? So SPF is a great way to remind yourself when you're putting it on that you're protecting your skin from harmful rays that can really wreak havoc on your skin. And I even think of that, and I'm like, well, that even teaches us healthy boundaries in general. You know what I mean? Like, and I have a chapter in the book about how to say no in a way that feels, because I think women have a hard time saying no and putting up boundaries, because 100%. They don't want to be mean, right?
Right. Well, it's a misconception about what boundaries actually look like.
Ooh, you sound like you know a lot about that topic.
I do.
You said that with a lot of authorities, and now I want to interview you around that. But yeah, so like in the book, I give ways that you can say no that feel. You know what? You're not really saying no. You're saying yes.
You're saying yes to yourself.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Is that? Yeah, I know. You and I should talk again about boundaries.
We could have a whole episode just on boundaries, but I think that that's a common misconception that setting boundaries needs to be confrontational, that it needs to be an ultimatum, that it's, a precursor to falling apart of a romantic or, platonic relationship. And it's not. I mean, it's just, I love Brene Brown's definition of it. She said, it's just really like what is okay and not okay in your life. And I want to say this too about boundaries. Here's how I describe it. It's easy for me, not easy, but it's much easier for me to set a boundary with my neighbor or with my kid's teacher or with a colleague than it is for me to set a boundary with a family member. I will procrastinate on that forever and ever. Amen. I always want to be transparent about it, because I tend to talk about boundaries so matter-of-factly. I don't want anyone to think that it's supposed to be easy. It's one of the hardest conversations you'll ever have.
Boundaries is kind of about standards, right? Like 100%, if you take it a little bit deeper, it's kind of like having certain standards in your life that it's a quiet shift, but it's very powerful. If you're just like, that needs to rise to my standard, and it doesn't have to be haughty. It doesn't have to be arrogant. It's just, this is my standard. And if it's not there, I don't need to accept it into my life. Right. Yeah. And even I talk about, like, even nature has boundaries. Like the mountains stop, the ocean starts, the trees, you know what I mean? Like there's the sand and there's the ocean. Like even nature understands the power of these. Where do they start? Where do they stop? And you can coexist in a beautiful way, right?
I look to cats for for inspiration or of boundaries. I probably saw it on TikTok. That. Well, somebody was saying that she never trusts, like when she's dating in a heterosexual relationship, she never trusts a man who doesn't like cats because cats have boundaries. Yeah. And if you think about it, they sure do. Like they don't usually like to be petted without their own consent. If you just, watch a cat's behavior, they have really strict boundaries. And her whole philosophy was people that don't like cats tend to not like people who have boundaries themselves. I want to switch gears here because I'm super curious about this and I would love for you to tell the audience, because in the book you talk about planning self-care sabbaticals and self-love adventures and sort of like inspiration getaways that restore your soul and of course restore your skin. So do you have, can you just talk about that generally speaking, or if you have some tips for planning those?
Okay. Yes, I love it. These are what I officially call like radiance retreats. I started going on this when I got separated from my husband at the time. The first day, because my daughter and I are very close. So she's also 12 going on 13. And we were very close. And I don't think I even spent one night apart from her in the first decade of her life, And so when she started going to her dad's on the weekends, I was just like, oh my God, I'm separated from my daughter for the first time. I was not used to being alone with a blank canvas of unfilled, unscheduled time. And so my first instinct was just to be depressed and curl up in bed and just stay in bed all day watching like Real Housewives.
Lonely.
Yeah, lonely and just pigging out on cookies or whatever I could get on. I tried to do gluten-free. I would eat anything gluten, just kind of self-sabotaging. And then I just woke up the next morning. I was like, you know what? I am going to raise my vibration and I'm going to learn how to shine on my own, not as a mom, not as a wife, not as a business owner, but just me, myself. And I live in the best playground in the world, New York City. And so I decided I was going to go, I created a planner. I have a self-care planner called the Savor Beauty Planner. And I just took out a pen and I brought out the planner and I planned my weekend. And it was the most fun I'd ever had. As you said, I called it a self-love adventure, self-care sabbatical. This is going to be all about me. And I was going to step beyond my comfort zone and do things I'd never done before and with strangers. And my only intention was I'm going to feel good unconditionally. So I did like meditations. I hosted a self-care supper in my house with 3 strangers.
I was part of it. How neat.
I know. I was a part of a women's networking group and I just threw out an invitation. I said, hi guys. So I am doing a self-care supper tonight or in a few days. Does anybody want to come? And I'll say yes to the first 3 people who say yes. So I gathered like 3 strangers. They were all women entrepreneurs and we got together. I cooked a new Korean dish recipe. I'd never cooked really before. And then like I would read books. I joined an emotional fitness gym downtown where
emotional fitness. That is so Manhattan. Yes. Like say more about that.
So it's a frequency dome where you go in and all these people go into this like tent inside and they have like this like kaleidoscope in the ceiling. And then you do like breath work with this amazing music. And it just feels like you're really high on psychedelic drugs, but you didn't do anything but breathe, Okay. And then like I went to a sound bath. I don't know if you've ever heard of sound baths.
I've heard of them. I don't know what they are though.
So it's like a gong with a sound bowl and they put it all over your body, like these sound bowls. And then they and so the vibration heals your body. So I did that and I met a friend there and I didn't know who, he just seemed like a really nice guy. We became friends on Instagram. He was like, hey, he's the one that introduced me to the emotional fitness gym. He was like, do you want to go to this with me? And I was like, yes. And so I was just like this in my 40s, like, just like, wow, this is like so exciting,
It's a new chapter in your life. Yeah, that's amazing.
It was a new chapter in my life. And I started to understand the power of people a schedule, and experiences. And I was just like, I am going to do this every time I have a chance, because I want to raise my frequency so that I can live my highest self, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know,
well, what tips would you have for someone who, you know, isn't close to Manhattan or LA where those types of things happen and might be on more of a budget? Like raise his hand over here. I'm like, unfortunately, there's no sound baths in rural North Carolina.
Yes. Okay.
But the next time in Manhattan, I'll call you.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, Andrea, you can do all of this for free on YouTube, which is
That's
something
true.
that I would do as well. So if you just go on YouTube, and in fact, a lot of the stuff I do is for free. Like I started walking at home. You know, so if you just do walking at home in YouTube, there are so many amazing videos. You can get some of those videos. I use them as resources at radicalradiance.com. There's, if you put in YouTube sound bath, you will get hundreds of sound bath experiences, and you can just play it and meditate to it. If you want to do breath work, you can also, YouTube that as well. And then if you want to go deeper, I often, will Google it, and then you can do, all of these things online. So a lot of things are Airbnb experiences as well. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of like tarot card readings on Airbnb experiences. Did you know that Airbnb has these experiences?
I didn't. Is that new?
Yeah. It happened during, the pandemic. And then there's cooking classes on Airbnb. There's so many experiences that I did.
Amazing. It's not like I would love to do that, like kind of like a girls trip type of thing, because I've been sober for almost 11 years now. And like, I don't, it's not like like, let's get a bunch of champagne and get shit-faced drunk. And like, I've done that. It was super fun. Different chapter in my life too. But that's what would be really amazing for me to do with a bunch of women, is like, especially if you're all spread out in the United States. And I know a lot of you listening, your friends are all over, and, maybe once a year or every other year or whatever, you just find a central place and do some of those activities at an Airbnb. And I personally want to like dance around a fire naked to Stevie Nicks music, but also sound bath is nice.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. If you just go on Airbnb online experiences, they have so many fun things. Like this is what I did during the pandemic. And these are self-care sabbaticals. These are radiance retreats, cooking classes, hidden jazz club. I did a laughing class on Airbnb online experiences. You can do numerology. So like, that's the thing. And a lot of these things are pretty cheap. It's like $11, $19, you know what I mean? So these radiance retreats are really important to amp up your radiance. Yeah. And when you feel, radiance is a very important word, because it's like when you're radiating your like beautiful essence and high energy, like high vibrations, you attract like frequency into your life.
I agree with that. I'm the only reason I'm chuckling is because I've definitely had the opposite.
Yes. And I think during that time, and I know you can relate to this, Andrea, like after a divorce or after a breakup or after, it doesn't even have to just be a divorce. It can be, after, if you're in at a job that you don't enjoy, or, just like anything that brings you down. Mm-hmm. We all can relate to feeling depressed, feeling down, feeling just generally crappy.
Yeah.
I think during those moments, that's when you can really tap deep and say, I can change this. And you go on your self-care sabbatical. You say, I need a little time off, and I'm going to do something to raise the frequency, whatever, from all the way from walking to meditation to a sound bath to, I did things like I went to Vermont and I jumped off a mini cliff into water, and I've never done that before.
Oh, I have never done that either. I have a thing about like open water that makes me a little nervous, but
me too.
I do other risky behavior.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms Podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. Two moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck. And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone. Poof. Bye. See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working and impending doom had in fact impended. Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talk to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders. And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative. We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together. Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars, world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk. And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. You're not going to want to miss an episode. Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks. Unsticking it.
Yes, before we run out of time, I also want to I want to make a sharp left turn because I don't want to leave without asking you about your previous career. So before you founded Savor Beauty, you were a concert pianist, and that's a pretty huge pivot. So did you kind of like feel it was your calling to make this pivot, or did you like break your fingers? Is that like a pianist injury? Like what happened to make you make that pretty radical change?
Well, I was 5 months pregnant when I gave my last concert. And I was also, at the time had started my business a little bit, and like it was a hobby, Savor Beauty. So I was making lotions and potions in my kitchen. And I just made that decision that I didn't want to be touring and leaving my baby behind, Okay. So it was a life change. I know a lot of women who they often ask me, well, how did you get out of a career and start another one? And my best advice is start moonlighting, because that's what I did. I started making lotions and potions in my kitchen during my downtime, and start following your nose, like the yellow brick road, right? Just start following your passion but commit to it. Right? You want to commit to every day doing that passion, and eventually it can become a business, or you can, go back to school as while you have your career, because not a lot of us have the luxury to not have a paycheck. So you can do that on the side. And if it is your passion, you're very drawn to it and excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Interesting. So I know nothing about the career of being like a concert musician. And I'm assuming, is it sort of like elite athleticism where it's kind of a hard business to be successful in?
Okay. Yes.
Like the chosen few. Did you go to did you go to the school Fame? I know it's not like a real school.
Kind of. No. That's such an awesome question. I love it. So I went to a similar school. Yes, you can consider it that. It was called Eastman School of Music. It's in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
So these like School of Fame, it's very competitive. Everyone is super dedicated to their art. Excellence is the name of the game. And you practice like 8 hours a day.
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
Very disciplined. Yes, it's very disciplined. Touring, because I went on a lot of tours and sometimes I was visiting more towns than a presidential candidate, if you could believe it. I'd wake up often like, what town am I in? And it was very lonely, actually, to be a solo pianist. It's kind of like being a speaker. If you go on a speaking tour, it's very similar. Like it's high intensity and bright lights and like big audiences, and it's exciting for an hour. And then you go home and my TV and remote control were my friends, It was a very exciting but lonely endeavor for me.
It's interesting. Like I assume it's very different than being part of a symphony or a choir or a band where you have other people that are with you. Like it's like a team. So it's a solo endeavor.
Yeah. For me, it was a solo endeavor. There are a lot of musicians who are in orchestras who have musicians that they play with. For me, I was primarily a solo concert pianist. So that's what's really interesting. I made this shift in my 30s. And so that's why I always tell women, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you can make these shifts. You can decide that you want to do something different with your life. And because Andrea, I was alone like 90% of my time, and I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to learn how to work in a team. And I didn't know anything about business. Yeah. And the fact that I was able to launch a business, I call it School of Hard Knocks. I learned everything the hard way. It's like, that was a huge failure. That was a big mistake. What was my lesson learned? And how am I going to improve from here? And that's what I did every day.
Didn't you go into debt to open your first store in New York City?
Yeah. I put around $60,000 on my credit card and I didn't even know. I was just getting into debt. It was so stressful. Yeah. But I always said to myself, well, if I don't make it in business, because it was expensive, like you had to buy all these ingredients, opening up a retail spot in Manhattan is really expensive. And so, and I didn't have money. I had no money, no experience. I was so naive. Like, I don't know if I would have the guts to do it today. What I was doing back then, right? Ignorance is bliss, right? So, I went to debt, and my life is all about game of inches. People think, oh, you have the successful business. Oh, honey, sweat, blood, tears, and a game of inches. Like every day it was trying to get up and make a better decision from a mistake, or, small little seeds that I would plant along the way. Everything is a game of inches. Because if you think, oh, I'm going to do this big goal, it will stop you dead in your tracks.
Oh, yeah. I call it a slog. I like yours. I like game of inches better.
Game of inches for a big leap.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what people mostly see. It's just like what's on the outside. And oh my gosh, you had this storefront in the West Village and how amazing. And now it's successful, however many years later it's been. But that people ask me like, what was the secret to your success? And I said, it was a few things. First of all, I was an early adopter. The timing was everything for me. Second of all, I had delusional confidence. Because I was an early adopter, there weren't a whole lot of people who had done what I did who were ahead of me. So I was just like, of course it's going to work out. Like, why would it not? I wish I had that same, it's that similar to ignorance is bliss. And also, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, I had a lot of masculine energy driving the bus. Driving the race car is actually because it wasn't a bus.
Yes.
And
a race
that
car
led to burnout. I can't even imagine doing it any other way, but I will say there was lots of blood, sweat, and tears. Now I know where that term comes from because it's a slog. It's that game of inches. And I also want to say one more thing before we close. And this, you might disagree with me on this, but I also think that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. And
no, it's not. It's not for everyone. No, absolutely not. In fact, it's kind of for a crazy few.
Yeah. And it does not mean that we're better or smarter or more intelligent. Sometimes it's people that have a lot of resources that they didn't earn. But it's also, my husband tried it over the pandemic and then was kind of like, I don't think this is for me. And I was like, I could have told you that ahead of time. I don't want you to see it for yourself. It's, and I also think that, sometimes every once on a blue moon, I get really tired and really burned out. And I think about going to work at for a corporation or 9-to-5 type of thing. And it just seems more appealing. And then I'll hear, I'll have this conversation with myself and then it's like, well, but I don't know if I would be passionate about that. And then I just also think that it is a luxury to be passionate about what you do. And I also don't think that it's like all or nothing. Like you can still have a really fucking fantastic life and not be passionate about your job. Like I don't want you to hate it. I don't want you to hate who you work with and think that what you do is worthless. But I think girl boss culture was pushing this notion of like, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. I'm like, really? Because this feels like a job most days. But I think the bottom line of what I'm trying to say is you can still have a really fulfilling life and do a job that you're not, quote unquote, so passionate about.
Right. And the passion, I really believe we all want and desire passion in our lives can come from hobbies and outside of 9-to-5. I think, Andrea, you bring up a really good point. And yes, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I used to coach, I've probably coached thousands of women entrepreneurs. And here's what I will say. One thing that most of us have in common is that we've had tough lives. And so there's a lot of healing that many entrepreneurs find through their business. I know for me personally, I was kind of an outsider growing up as an Asian kid in a primarily white town in Iowa. And so I learned independence and I have to do it my way very early on. And so there is some value and something amazing about, and I feel admiration and envious actually of people who can turn off work at 5, and there is something very nice about the stability of working for, another company and not having to worry about payroll and not having to worry about the A to Z of running a business. There's something really beautiful about that too. So I think both ends have pros and cons. I don't think I'm hireable. I think I'd get fired on the first day.
But she wants one with a big mouth and who can entertain you for a few hours.
Right. For that. So yes, many entrepreneurs are not employable.
I agree with that. Well, before we close up, I could talk to you all day long and just thank you so much for your wisdom, for your rich wisdom today. And is there anything that you want to circle back to that we talked about over the last 45 minutes or so that you want to say in order to feel complete?
I want to circle back really quickly on feminine energy, because I think there's a very powerful message and lesson that we can learn from from feminine energy. And that's softening to receive, and we talked about how you treat your skin is how you treat your soul. I think that like for Savor Beauty Facial, for example, we will use a hot, moist towel and steam to soften the pores before applying nourishment, through creams and serums. And this process of softening melts the debris and the hard stuff to butter-like consistency. So the skin can extract, the pimples or drink up the mask and cream's nutrients. And I think we can apply the same process to like the inner pores, right? The soul. When we soften the edges, what that means is you're slowing down, you're listening to others more intently, and then you're receiving to more abundantly. And receiving means, we talked earlier about my mistakes as an entrepreneur and as a human being. When you receive, you just start to listen. Oh my gosh, there's a gift in that failure. There's insights. And when you start to receive those things and slow down to listen to those lessons and messages, you start to have manifestations that come from feeling good, pleasurable experiences. And so you become more connected to your relationships. I would even venture so far as to say you'll receive more financial abundance, even from that kind of openness, right? And abundance in general with the people around you, and connectedness to yourself and to others. So that's my closing statement of feminine energy: soften to receive.
I love that. And also, you might hear something on a podcast episode that sticks with you that you've heard before, or you might have missed, if you weren't. So I appreciate that so much. And where do you want people to go to grab the book and maybe you have some bonuses, right?
Yes. So when you go to radicalradiance.com, you can click on virtual goodie bag. And when you purchase the book, all you need to do is go to this link and upload your receipt, and then you'll get a good virtual goodie bag worth $350, which include a manifestation workshop that I created, my 1-minute glow routine to get ready for a Zoom meeting in a New York minute, beauty food recipes, and a $25 gift card to savorbeauty.com. So you can just get $25 of whatever you want at savorbeauty.com. So that's my gift to all of you. And so you need to do is just go to radicalradiance.com. I would love to connect with everyone at Angela Jia Kim on Instagram. And thank you so much, Andrea, for having me. It's been such a joy to speak with you.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I want to just one more time, Radical Radiance, 12 weeks of self-love rituals to manifest abundance, beauty, and joy. And all of those links will be in the show notes, everyone, of this episode. Thank you, listeners, for sharing your time with me and my guest today. You know how grateful I am for your time. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans, and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free, and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable, tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.